Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. In this video, we'll try to rationalize the denominators of these fractions. Before starting to rationalize these denominators, we need to know a few basic things. Now, what are these a few basic things? We basically need to know three things before we try to rationalize these denominators. If you know these three things, it will be very easy for us to rationalize the denominators. So the first thing that you need to know is if we have something like root a times root a, then root a times root a is just plain a, okay? Or if we had something like, let's say, root 5 times root 5, then this would just give us 5, okay? So if we have same number and we have square root a times square root a, the same number, then the square root just disappears and we just get a. So that's our first rule. The reason this is happening is because when we have something like root a times root a, this is actually root a whole square, and you can cut this square and this square root and you would get a, okay? So in this way, if we had something like square root a times square root a, we would get a. In place of a, there could be number like square root 5 times square root 5, it would give us 5. So that's our first thing. The second thing that you need to know is the formula of a square minus b square. And the formula of a square minus b square is a plus b, a minus b. A plus b, a minus b gives us a square minus b square. This is one of the formulas that you need to know to rationalize the denominators of specifically the second, third, and fourth type of fractions. So our second important thing that you need to know is our formula of a square minus b square, which is a plus b, a minus b. Now the last thing that you need to know is something called equivalent fractions. I'm sure you already know this, but still let's just review it a little bit. So if you have something like a divided by b, and if you multiply both the numerator and the denominator by a same particular number, like let's say c for now, then we would get something like ac divided by bc. So our initial fraction was a divided by b. We multiplied both the denominator and the numerator by c, and we got ac by bc. Our final fraction ac by bc and our initial fraction a by b are the same fractions, and they are known as equivalent fractions. They are same fractions because if you cut this c and this c, you would again get a divided by b. So we can multiply both the numerator and the denominator with a particular number on both sides, and we would get our equivalent fraction, and we know that the equivalent fraction is the same as the original fraction. So what we need to know here from our third point is that we can multiply the numerator and the denominator by a same particular number. For example, let's put some numbers instead of a and b in our fraction. Let's say we have 3 divided by 5. What we can do with this fraction is we can multiply both the numerator and the denominator by a same number. It could be any number, but it needs to be same. Let's say we multiply both the numerator and the denominator by a number 6. Then what would we get? We would get 3 times 6 is 18 and 5 times 6 is 30. This 18 by 30, this fraction, is the equivalent fraction of 3 by 5, and both these fractions are same, okay? Because we can cut this fraction by 6. We have 6 times 3 is 8 and 6 times 5 is 30, and we would again get our original fraction, which is 3 by 5. So that's our third point that you need to know we can multiply the numerator and the denominator by a same particular number, and we would still be able to get our original fraction, or what we would get by multiplying like this is an equivalent fraction, which is the same as our original fraction. So we can do this. This is the most important part, because in all of our questions, in our 4 questions that we have here, what we are going to do is we are going to multiply both the numerator and the denominators of these fractions to rationalize the denominators. So now that we know all these 3 things, let's see if we can rationalize the denominators of our question. So let's start with our question number 1. Our question number 1 was 1 divided by root 7. Let's try to rationalize the denominator of this question. By denominator, we mean the lower part of our fraction, okay, which is root 7. And this upper part of our fraction is called numerator. So the lower part is denominator, the upper part is numerator. What we need to do is we need to rationalize this denominator. By rationalize, what we mean is we need to remove this radical sign or this square root. If we can remove that square root symbol, then we have rationalized the denominator. When there is a square root, and especially when there is a prime number, then that's a irrational number. We want to make this a rational number, and the way we can make this a rational number is by removing this square root. So basically, we just need to remove the square root, and we are going to do that from our 3 rules that we just learned before. So the first thing that we are going to do is we have 1 divided by root 7. To remove this root 7, I'm going to multiply both the numerator and the denominator with root 7. I can do this, right? So we have 1 times root 7 and root 7 times root 7. Why am I doing this? Because I know root 7 times root 7 is 7, and the square root symbol just disappears. So what we'll get from here is 1 times root 7 is root 7, and like I already told you, root 7 times root 7 is 7. This was our first rule, or the first basic rule that we just learned before, right? Root a times root a is a, root 5 times root 5 is 5. Similarly, root 7 times root 7 would be 7. And you see that our denominator now does not have that radical sign or the square root symbol, and so we have essentially rationalized our denominator. And that's it. That's our first answer. Now let's look at our second question. So our second question was 1 divided by root 7 minus root 6. So we have 1 divided by root 7 minus root 6. To rationalize this particular denominator, what we are going to do is we are going to use the formula of a square minus b square, okay? And the formula for a square minus b square is a plus b, a minus b. We can't rationalize this in the same way as we did our question number 1, because now we have minus as well here, and we have 2 particular radicals, okay? We have 2 numbers with square root. So we can't just multiply this with root 7 or root 6, because if you multiply this with root 7, only this square root disappears, and if you multiply this with root 6, only this square root disappears. We want to remove the square root of both 7 and 6. The way we can do that is by using this particular formula, okay? A square minus b square. Now, how do we use this formula? Let's see. So we have a 1 divided by root 7 minus root 6. So this looks something like a minus b. I need a plus b as well to make it a square minus b square. So what I am going to do is I'm going to multiply both the numerator and denominator with root 7 plus root 6, so that I would get a plus b, a minus b in the denominator, okay? So I have to do that in the numerator as well. So we have root 7 plus root 6 in our numerator as well. Now what we are going to get is 1 times root 7 plus root 6 is root 7 plus root 6. 1 times anything is the same thing. And then in the denominator, what we have is a minus b and a plus b, or a plus b and a minus b. And the formula of a plus b a minus b is a square minus b square. So what we'll have here is our a square is going to be root 7 square. This is our a square, minus our b square is going to be root 6 whole square. Now we can cancel this square and this square root. Here as well we can do that, and what we'll get at the end is we have a root 7 plus root 6 in our numerator, divided by we have 7 minus 6. This is going to be root 7 plus root 6 divided by 7 minus 6 is 1. So let's write it for now. We have 1. And our denominator is now rationalized, right? We don't have square root symbol in our denominator. We can just write this as root 7 plus root 6. We don't need to write that 1 in the denominator, right? Because it is there. And so we have rationalized our denominator in this question as well. And that's our answer. So our denominator here is 1, which is a rational number. Now let's go to our third question. So our third question was 1 divided by root 5 plus root 2. This is very similar to our second question, okay? So let's see. So in question number 3, we have 1 divided by root 5 plus root 2. In this particular question, we have a plus b in the denominator, okay? So we need a minus b to make it a square minus b square. So what are we going to multiply this denominator with? So we have a plus b. Now we need a minus b to make it a square minus b square. So we are going to multiply this with root 5 minus root 2. Okay, so we have minus over here. Similarly, you also have to multiply the numerator. So again, we have root 5 minus root 2 over our numerator. And then when we multiply this, we are going to get 1 times root 5 minus root 2 is root 5 minus root 2 divided by, now in the denominator we have again a plus b and a minus b, and by now we already know the formula of a plus b and a minus b, which is a square root 5 whole square minus our b square is root 2 whole square. Again, we can cut this square and square root, square and square root, and we have in the numerator root 5 minus root 2. In the denominator we have 5 minus 2 equals to, we have root 5 minus root 2 divided by 5 minus 2 is 3. And again, our denominator is a rational number now, and we have rationalized the denominator of our third question as well. Now let's go to our final question. Our final question is 1 divided by root 7 minus 2. So you can pause the video and try this final question by yourself in your copy, right? And then check if your answer is correct or not. So we have 1 divided by root 7 minus 2. The way we're going to rationalize this particular fraction is again the same way. So again, we have something like 1 divided by root 7 minus 2. And then again, we need a plus b, a minus b. So this is our a minus b. Now we are just going to multiply this with a plus b. And again, we have to multiply the same number in the numerator. So we have root 7 plus root 2. Again, 1 times anything is the same thing, right? So 1 times root 7 plus 2 is root 7 plus 2. And in the denominator, we have a plus b, a minus b. This is again going to be a square minus b square, which is going to be root 7 whole square, which is our a square, minus our b square is 2 square. So we have something like root 7 plus 2 divided by, again we can cut this square and this square root, and we would get 7 over here, minus 2 square is 4. So we have something like root 7 plus 2 divided by 7 minus 4 is 3. And done. Again, our denominator is rationalized because 3 is a rational number. So in this way, we can easily rationalize the denominators of any fraction if you know just few basic things. and the few basic things where like root a times root a is a, the formula of a square minus b square, and the equivalent fractions. So if you know these three basic things, then it's pretty easy to rationalize the denominator of any type of fractions. So if you have any confusions, let us know in the comments below. And if you liked our video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for future maths videos. Thank you.